Spirit Radio Podcasts.
Well, I'm delighted to have my next guest with me in studio. She's a former national newspaper and television journalist as well. She runs her own business, her current business called mediatraining.ie, and it's all about training people to be better communicators, better presenters, better business people, anything to do with communicating, really. And she's put some of her experiences and insights down in writing in a new book. It's called Perform as a Leader. In studio to tell us more about this new book, I have Orla Carmody. Good morning, Orla. How are you doing?
Good morning, Wendy. Lovely to be here with you on Spirit.
Well, I have to say, when I was on the website earlier, you know, looking back at some of the achievements in your career, you have done so much. What would you say you have kind of enjoyed doing the most to date?
Ooh,
hard to say, probably.
Hard to say, yeah. I mean, I've done a lot of different things. I've worked in, as you said, television, radio, newspapers, magazines, and in training and in media. And, you know, everything I've done throughout my career, it seems like a lot of different things, but actually it's all about communication. So it seems that communication is the thread that has run through everything I've done. And even in recent years, working with people on business development and that aspect of things, again, most of that is about good communication. And the book I've put together, Perform as a Leader, is probably the culmination of many years of experience and lots of ideas I've gleaned from working with fabulous people, amazing leaders, and not all of them very well known, not the big stellar names that you might think. Some people are low-key, quiet leaders in a small way, leaders in a charity, in a social entrepreneurship area, in a small micro business that only employs 4 or 5 people, and yet they're just such impactful, amazing people. And I've learned so much from them, and I've gathered an awful lot of that and put it together in the book.
So what was that process like, Orla, in terms of saying, OK, I've made the decision? It's probably something you've thought about before, but you finally did it. How did it all come together?
I think I've kind of had it in my mind to write a book for quite a while, and I don't know what happened earlier last year around March. Something just clicked and I started one day and began writing, and I wrote it, I think, in about 5 weeks, and that was doing the day job as well.
Wow.
Because it was information that I was so familiar with, and because I'm teaching this all day, every day. I'm standing in front of groups of people every day when I'm not doing something like I am here today with you, but it would be working with small businesses, bigger companies, groups of people on their presentation skills, their media skills, their negotiating skills, pitching for business, coaching teams, leadership development, all of those things. So having sort of done this so frequently and so often, the information was right there at the top of my head, and the writing part was very easy. It came out very fast. But, and as every author will tell you, and as a first-time author, then the difficult piece starts. You have to go back and forward and edit and rewrite and tweak. I worked with a wonderful local publisher and editor here in Bray, where Spirit is based, PJ Cunningham of Ballpoint Press. And PJ is such a gentleman and was just a treasure to work with, because you bounce your ideas across and back with your publisher, with your editor, and it has to be a good relationship. And I have to say it was terrific. And, you know, we came to the end of the summer by August and we were both very, very happy with it. And I'd only started in March. We came to August and we pushed the button and it was on the bookshelves at the end of September. So it was quite an achievement.
An extraordinary achievement in such a short space of time. And I think a lot of people would ask the question, my goodness, how do you juggle all these different responsibilities?
Yeah, well, I suppose you want something done, ask a busy woman, isn't that it? I have 4 young adults, I call them now. They were teenagers. My daughter is 17 and the 3 boys are 19, 20 and 22. So my hands are full with them. But it's a bit easier nowadays because they're in school and college and they're running their own lives to an extent. When they were much smaller, I took a good few years out. I took some time out with them. I think I was sort of 7 or 8 years at home with the smallies and doing the mom piece, and I had to do that very full on at that time. But I always knew I would get back to my career. I would get back to it because I had this information, as I said, that I was bursting to share with other people. And again, I think that's why I wrote the book, because I can't stand in front of every group. I can't work with every client. I can't train everybody. I can't spread myself around. And I knew the material I had was really good and really helpful to people who want to learn how to be better presenters, want to learn how to be better public speakers, want to learn how to motivate their teams that little bit better. And I really just wanted to share the material and bring it to a wider audience. It's really good stuff, and I wanted to bring it to more people.
So So let's call perform as a leader. And a lot of people, when they hear the word leader, I think first of all people would say, that's, even if they are, they mightn't even realise it a lot of the time. No, that's not me. Or they think of kind of an authoritarian type person, and it's those type of people that are a leader. But we're seeing very different kind of leadership trends and styles at the moment, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a very exciting time to be looking at leadership, and in fact a lot of people are thinking about it and talking about it. It's one of those buzz things. We seem to be hearing about it an awful lot. And why are we questioning it so much at the moment? And it's probably because we've seen such huge changes in the church, in government, in all of those established authority pieces. They're all discredited. The banks discredited to a large extent. So we have to reinvent this stuff and look at a different kind of leadership that suits the age we live in, which is great news for women, because the old authoritarian style, as you've described, I call that the commander. And I think we've moved from the commander to the coach. And I actually have a chapter on this, from commander to coach, because, and as women, we know we've been coaches all our lives. We've been coaching at the school gate. We've been coaching our families. We've been coaching teams. But the authoritarian style of leadership, not one of us will follow somebody anymore because they've got boss written on the door. Do as I say. We just will not do it. We need, if organisations are flatter, we need to be much more inclusive. We need to be much more respectful. And a lot of this maybe is to do with the kind of advent of the digital age. You know, the little geeky kid who arrives in here at age 18, sitting in the corner, may be the next Mark Zuckerberg. He may be the genius with all the answers. So we better start listening to him right now and not wait till he's been in the business for 10 years before he has any credibility and before anybody asks his opinion. So that kind of inclusivity leads to a very different type of leadership, and that's the much more coaching style of leadership. And it is the era of the coach, not the commander. And the coach is somebody who is very interested in their teams. You can use the word right to describe a good coach, which is rigorous, intuitive, caring and engaged. And those principles are all the best coaches. And I'm thinking of Joe Schmidt. I'm thinking of brilliant people like that, and they are instinctively all of those things.
It's in their instinct. But what about people then, Orla, who maybe have occupied the commander position for some years, and they're seeing the wisdom in this better way of doing business, in being a coach and being caring, as you're saying, in all those things. Is it hard to make that transition then from kind of one style to the other?
I think it would be very, very hard for a sort of a traditional old style commander type boss to change their spots. Absolutely. I think it would be very hard, but they hopefully would employ others on their team who are more the modern style and who might actually work with the team a little bit better. But the old commander style of barking orders and expecting everybody to jump every time you're really not going to succeed with the millennials in that way. And, as the older group of people, the baby boomers, retire and move on, it's becoming the age of the millennials, the young people who will want to do things differently. And the people they look up to and they admire will not be commanders, they will be coaches. And, so the commander will either retire and move off, or they will have to change to survive. There's no doubt.
They'll have to adapt. I wanted to ask you, one part of the book focuses specifically on leadership challenges experienced by women. Of course, you can talk great authority on this yourself, Orla, from your own experience, and I imagine from the women that you've worked with over the years. But what are they? Well,
women will tell you that the challenges they face are quite specific, and I would have worked with an awful lot of groups in the financial institutions, banks, insurance businesses, and very interestingly, these companies are engaging with the challenges facing women probably for the first time. They're engaging with it from the top down in a very serious way because they want to hold on to their talent. If you have 50% of your talent beginning to move out of the workforce by the time they hit their mid-30s because they're entering into the family zone and caring for parents and all of that, you're losing half your talent. And these companies suddenly realise we don't want half our expensively developed talent to walk out the door. So we need to start looking at ways of holding on to the talent and encouraging women to stay with their careers if that's what they choose to do. Some women will choose to spend time out with their families, as I did myself. But when you choose to stay in your career, that it's actually comfortable for you.
And flexible.
And that it works for you and that you can actually have your work-life balance. And very interesting, as I said, that companies are probably engaging with this for the first time because it's now accepted that companies that have better gender diversity and full inclusivity, diversity in the widest sense of the world, they perform better. The bottom line is better. They make more money. And that is the business case for diversity. It's not the warm and woolly, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have more women involved? No. There's a strong business case for keeping women happy and content and able to fulfil their careers if that's what they choose to do. But the problems they face will be very much around childcare, around confidence, around not going forward for a promotion because they think, I mightn't be able to give the full commitment to it.
It seems to me it's kind of interesting, the psychology and the basic difference sometimes between men and women when it comes to work is it's that analogy of a woman will go in and say, I want a raise of 10,000, and the boss will say, here's 2, and you go, thank you very much, well, thank you, you're so good. The man will say, I want 10,000, and he'll get it, and insist on it. Or like that, seeing a new job, they kind of say that a woman will see the job and go, oh, I don't have 2 of the attributes on that list, and therefore kind of rules herself out, whereas the man will go, I don't have 6 of them, but I'm going for it anyway. Why is it that we have this kind of lack of confidence in ourselves to kind of drive ourselves forward?
Yeah, and you've hit on something that is so important and comes up again and again, that piece of self-selection. We choose ourselves for roles, and leadership is a choice. You choose it. It's not something that you're born with, and you choose to go forward for that next role or you won't. But a lot of the women I would work with would say, I don't want to commit to going forward to that role, the higher level, the promotion, if I lose my flexible time, if I can't be a fully committed member of the team, if I feel that I'm going to be, women are terribly conscientious, and they literally will stop themselves going forward unless they can do it 110%, which is very commendable in one way. It's very honest, but in another way it may be holding them back. And also I think women need to think of the bigger picture of their career in a broader way, rather than just think of, what am I going to do next Friday when I don't have a childminder? They need to look at the big picture. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you have to be kind to yourself and say, it's okay, I can take the foot off the pedal a little for the next few years because my kids are small, I can work part-time hours, but you know what, in a few years' time they're all going to be in secondary school, it's going to be easier, I might want to challenge myself again, so therefore I can put the foot back on the pedal again. So you have to take the long-term view and do a bit of planning about it. I was working with a woman once who was in HR, and she was telling me she was volunteering in UCD, working with business studies students, just helping them out in a little bit of career progression and what have you. And she worked, not scientific, about 10 people, 5 women, 5 men, young women, young men. And the boys were all, when I qualify and I get my business studies degree, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And by age 30, I expect to be at that level. And by age 40, I expect to be director level. And by age 45, I expect to be CEO level. And the whole thing mapped out in their head. And she said the girls were extraordinary, equally talented, equally, smart, committed young women. And they were, well, I might travel and I might meet a fella and I might get married and I might not. And she was saying, will you plan your career? Think about it. Don't be surprised at age 30 when your biological clock kicks in and you want to have that child. It's probably going to happen. So plan for it.
Yeah, map it out. Yeah,
map it out, exactly.
It sounds so simple, but yet sometimes we neglect to do it well. Orla, it's been a pleasure to have you in studio. I've been chatting to Orla Carmody. She is author of Perform as a Leader. You can find out all about the book and indeed about Orla as well on the website for the book, which is performasaleader.com. Orla, thanks for joining us on Spirit Radio.
Thank you very much indeed, Wendy.
Thanks for listening to our Spirit Radio podcast. Don't miss out. Subscribe today. Find out how at spiritradio.ie.